Yamana Koba. Yamana Koba Zeba Yuna Jumiza Ya Toba Yashisha Yaza Wakwe. Naya Chimizen no car ni Chimizi. No car ni Chimizi. Omo Mendenso or Bawakwe. Na Edikanin za Yaba to Ashe. Send the Visa Edikana Aisha Jimizia. Ebini Jimizi Ashe. Wo Oye Ghana Man News or Facebook. The Maranso na Echo YouTube na ehwehwe Ghana Ba News a ebehu da mujumede wo YouTube. The chopper kase the better win. I won't say every the mujumede ye da ba kwem. Wo YouTube ni ya adamana awon ledo na baka the mujumede ho. Amma abibiara yeba oya abafo kwantempono do mujumede bi boto ho a wotu abo wonkai na enyakonya ahwebe na achewa adwen. Wo comment section in maybe o ho a achewa adwen type the total asrebe fa wadwen kire fo gu ho na yehu za ya dingin ho za yehu ho komoyi even den usu wadwen kire oteben o sende emu yi owo imagine kire ye de bua ma ye beti kire oman Ghana kaide former president Nana Adedankwa Akufo-Addo no say yenye timamofo mama yenye bohwe adzefo. And those people you are welcome to our show that the bitter truth. The bitter truth. If this is the first time you are watching this show, you will find this show on Ghana Bad News on Facebook channel. At the same time, when you go to YouTube and type Ghana Bad News, you will find this show on our YouTube channel. We are humbly pleading with you. Kindly click on the notification bell to subscribe to Ghana Bad News channel so that as and when we upload a content, you will be notified to be part of the first people to watch the show. And we are also humbly appealing that be part of this show. Drop your comment in the comment section. Let us know your perspective, your opinion, your views about the topics we are discussing. And today's topic that we are going to look at is the growing food shortage in our second cycle school, the free SHS, under the free SHS policy. The lack of adequate food supply under the free SHS policy. This is what we want to look at. And the steps, the announcement, the directives that President John Dramani Mahama gave during the National Prayer and Thanksgiving. This is what we want to talk about. And in the light of this, we have titled today's presentation as President Mahama takes responsible steps to minimize food shortage in free SHS policy. President Mahama takes responsible steps to minimize food shortage impact in free SHS policy. Zayawa kanyibe omampeni John Dramani Mahama etu anamon de noba ya izibani wa sama wa kwatwe wo free SHS minizili ninenana oboso wano nisunsan dobo na ozo besiafo adechenya adesia wontu ade school ninenana John Dramani Mahama omampeni etu hu anamon na onno ona yapede with the whole income. We give the food a the far routine at say there free SHS and the former want you be school in it's ban the one some yeah kana it's ban one some yeah kana or school in the meeting at a chair for new school at a before work from your number want you be school in sa abba izbana wabanya zama yana mama wizinana nuhu asam ayakana wantumanka under former president a so-called self-acclaimed competent president Nana Adedankwa Akufo-Addo we bunini masi na mbomu ankoye under free SHS amount for a dollar or money in the people of Ghana ha. And that time awful is so far work of USHS. What complain workers are they will need the easy. At a cheerful school at the buffet. School Chebo at the buffet. Second cycle, school management. Heads of the various second cycle schools complaining because of inadequate supply of food under the free SHS policy. Yet, a so-called self-acclaimed competent president, past competent President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, a so-called past self-acclaimed competent President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, who introduced what we will say a national free SHS policy, Nana, continue to disagree with people that the free SHS needs a review. In the first place, as soon as the former president, who is now the president, Mahama, then as candidate in opposition, made mention that the free SHS policy needs a review, a so-called self-acclaimed, past self-acclaimed competent Nana Addo Akufo-Addo said, reviewing free SHS policy being proposed by John Dramani Mahama is an indication of cancellation, and all the NPP, the sensible ones among them, also through the same line, were arguing that look, what Mahama said, calling for the review of the free SHS after persistent complaint, especially about the challenges confronting the implementation of the free SHS policy. Yet, a former past self-acclaimed competent in Nana Addo Akufo-Addo and his MPP cronies, who thought they were so experienced, intelligent than other citizens. The rest of the Ghanaian citizens who were complaining, whose kids were in schools, and could feel and could see the challenges confronting the free SHS policy implementation. Yet Nana Addo closed his ears and eyes to all the teething problems that were confronting the implementation of the free SHS, because former President Mahama, who is now the president, has called for a review of the free SHS policy. So when you hear the NPP, the educated NPP, who always pride themselves, they were so intellectual, they were educated, and they jumped to the fray. The stupidity, the unproductive, the counterproductive, stupid politicking in this country. And now they say, review means cancellation, and they all jump to it. Only it could be for free SHS who or what's a man can. Sebi, you never listen Sunday, you remember when you school, you know me and school, you know what Pacific in school. You want young people who are church for what you went to school. You want a church for what your school do, and young people all headmasters and headmistress in those various schools across the length and breadth of this country. It's here with you when it's in the work come and say, only I'm dead. Nana Addo Akufo-Addo said, the soon now so on pede. The other can we are going to the free SHS be or the 13 said wɔ abrabɔ mu asetena mu wɔn na ɔbɛkɛdɛ asetena bi yie wɔ a ɛyɛ asentan mu ɛyɛ ɔhaw mu unless sabi there is something wrong with your head wɔ asetena mu abrabɔ mu no ɔhaw wɔ hɔ ɛyɛ bibi atɔɔte nti sɛ na President Mahama then candidate Mahama kada in opposition the free SHS you don't know ɔhaw wɔ ho yi ne nti what there a man when we will corner rubber for the Yashua na former president and other Bakade Sebi Akade 1 year pension no one review at the cancellation of the Sebi Yan San walk the Massami on in that then another package Ghana for the Sebi Ghana for now one arguing Juma Lusu Sondo in order to Aba it's here a year MPP or some Amayo Kunen then the bra Ghana food Waka the one continent, you did another Tinefia or Bodrin in Pedagog, ọbọdụ na onye mususu ndị ọdị pati nini ọdị akwụsị npp amayokwu ni ọdị akwụsị kada dwumadi a yɛhwɛ no na ɔyɛ nokwar winning dwumadi. You might not like what we are saying, but that is the fact, that is the truth. Nokwar yɛwɛn mpanyinfo sɛ nokwar yɛwɛn ne ka yɛ kana wɔn abaka nokwar winning yɛbaka. Truth, they say, is like a bitter pill. Truth is like a bitter. You might not like what this platform is talking about. When President Mahama at the time in opposition called for the review of the free SHS policy, the then president, the self-acclaimed, the so-called self-acclaimed competent President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo was attributing review to cancellation. And the sad aspect of it is that the intellectuals within the NPP party followed that stupid suit. We're also saying that Mahama's call for review means cancellation. Yet it was not only Mahama who called for the review of the free SHS. There were churches, there were parents, there were students who themselves were complaining. Yet they sat in this country, they went ahead as government to tell Ghanaians that review means cancellation. Come to think of this. So Akufo-Addo thought Ghanaians were so stupid. He is the only intelligent president or the intelligent being in this country who did not see any challenge about the free SHS. Only thing, what school did the heads, tasks, the cabinet, Mama will be school to Sunday. Yes, the call. One choice economy could share in suppliers. You want to call. We say the call ya not chance where the conference of heads of assisted secondary schools in the call that they place on the president that don't open the school, extend it because we are in arrears to our suppliers. They went ahead or calling it the Banahusam Aye. But the Pade, you see, truth, no, you can also it's like a bitter pill. Whether a pill and pill or your dinner, it shall surely come out. It's the reality shall dawn on you. So when the reality dawn on His Excellency, the former president, self-acclaimed competent and Akufo-Addo, for Ghanaians to judge, when they went to the polls, Ghanaians rated the performance of a so-called past self-acclaimed competent Nana Addo Akufo-Addo Bawumia NPP-led administration, and the verdict is now out there. Now we will feel in opposition. I believe that Nana Addo Akufo-Addo Tifia said if he's a responsible president, former president, he will sit and reflect on his governance, what he did for Ghanaians, and the comment that Ghanaians are giving. That is the judgment of his governance. Remember, the show you are watching is the bitter truth. It's the bitter truth. Now, let's listen to President Mahama with immediate steps that the directives he gave to minimize the impact of food shortage in our second cycle schools. Let us go. Just listen to President Mahama.
As we speak, we have a challenge currently with feeding students in secondary schools, as the Ghana Education Service insisted that schools must reopen on the 3rd of January, contrary to the advice of the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools. As a stopgap measure, I've asked the Chief of Staff to work with the Ghana Education Service to allocate and evacuate food that is currently held in warehouses in Teman. This food was imported by the outgone government in response to the drought that occurred last year. But in this emergency, we need to use some of that food to feed our students so that education can continue.
ate President John Dramani Mahama. Ate President John Dramani Mahama. Bia Wobia Sol no Wabida Civil Manyankopon at the National Prayer and Thanksgiving. The directives that President John Dramani Mahama gave towards addressing the challenge in an emergency situation requires an emergency response. Listen, the bigger to be saying an emergency situation requires emergency response. Only look, when President Mahama was sworn in a few days, less than a week, one, he acknowledged that there is a challenge in terms of food supply in our second cycle schools under the free SHS policy. That is the first thing, to recognize that there is a challenge and there ought to be a way to address it, to confront it. President Mahama admitted the challenge that yes, what Charles said, that if the one some other or home or into a new school, it's more formal. One way school, what burning, we need the banner from one formal. Listen, I do the Kana Mahama or Mampin, John Dramani Mahama or you to me there or how you hope. It's the banner someone want your new school or your problem or your symptom or your how only Aja of the Canana or you too. 1 year to the Nadi Banka, what kind of problem or 1 year review? What's a sabi? Review means cancellation. So, former president, super incompetent former president, Nana Banka, the self-acclaimed, competent, I never say competent. I'm not incompetent, is in the two Mahamado. That's one young thing the problem also. Failure to admit the challenge in place an indication that you are not prepared to solve it. It's Mahama or G2. No, say I am directing. Also, a man gonna trade the baby of a warehouse or be a walk crazy ban whatever. What I abandon now, okay, another bank of Fado, what they send the name to the name so I said around talk. It's illegal to see their cool they say everybody wants some bayards in or money ghana into or money ghana or Mampenina way a baby call on your Mampenina and another bank of Fado now, but then what creates bank to a mononazi, what the baby do, what tema, baby, what tema. Then one by us says the one wants some quatria, when they need the baby banana supply kakra. Oh, yeah, no one papa. Oh, yeah, another bank of Fado now, banana tree. Let's say the American message in there in Suan to equal to man, the young papa. That means to come to me, see, if the one wants somebody to my patro or man, Mr. Walker, the one wants some I am very want to a school. So they said, but I didn't know former president and other papa. The needs money, will be later to school in any other former way to more dignity. If the money no man care, said, I'm which you too, the Roman Abua, Aswa, which I know. Now, which you want to school with the Banasa, I didn't see the way to make a decision. No one found so I know. Said good governance, lack of what? Good leadership, good governance leadership on the part of the former president, Nana Adedanko Akufo-Addo. This is a simple logic. Nyansa, Oni store, if you have this Kamoko Koto. I can't really do no. Headmasters will issue the challenge. Abadinti may you them if the money be in from Kodanko Sowan. Only in the John Dramani Mahama way to one. This is what pragmatic steps prompt what leadership, good governance leadership. Only John Dramani Mahama has taken. So you were disappointed that if under Akufo-Addo, you realize that there could be drought because last year we did not have enough rains that could affect what the harvest. So there could be a challenge, and we imported food, cutting them in a warehouse. And now that there is a challenge in the secondary school, why couldn't you direct to take some of those food and supply it to the students in the schools in it? You see, that is why we are saying that acknowledging that there is a challenge is the first step in trying to address the situation, because Kufado failed to acknowledge that yes, anytime you make mention of a challenge about the FSHS policy, you are in opposition. You don't know what is happening, and that is what has landed Kufado's government to the opposition. Truth is like a bitter pill. The show you are watching is the bitter truth show. So you are not tasked for
to update the nation and, for that matter, the parents on the situation on our campuses. There is really nothing like any school in this country having all the needed items. There is only something like schools being given some quantities of food in varied quantities and in varied forms to manage the situation. As we talk, some schools, I must say, are a little bit okay, coming from different, premising that on for different reasons. Some already have some support from their PAs, augmented by what government has supplied. Others are still
you mean
in very
PTAs
dire.
rather?
PA.
Okay.
Parents Association.
Okay.
Parents Association.
Okay.
Yes. Others are still in very dire situations, even with the with the supply of some food items. Admittedly, some food items have reached out to almost every school in this country. But I'm saying dire because what is actually needed to run or to feed the students is still woefully inadequate. And I'll just give an example. My checks indicate that, especially for schools that are found in the northern belt and some in the middle belt and south, they still lack, apart from rice. Typically, if you take a place like Upper West, Upper East, if apart from rice, they do not have any other cereal. You can't talk about maize. You cannot talk about millet. So it is rice and nothing more. You go to what is used to make the soup. Some schools, for a long time, including my own school, don't have a single gallon of oil. So my matron, for example, will rely on things like margarine to do, and the margarine is finished. Next week, if I don't get margarine, there will be nothing to stand in for oil. So the situation is still, we are still not out of the blues, and the situation is not a uniform situation. Some are a bit okay, others are okay, and some are still in dire needs. So that is how I can describe the situation. As far
Something you've heard the Charles PRO explaining the circumstances, the prevailing situations as far as food supply in the various schools across the country is concerned. That was what we heard from Primus Barrow, who is the public relation officer for Charles. I think you read it yourself. Now, let's say you are a cat, the main people in the position, Ghana for a one position. Now, another was refusing to listen to this wisdom. This, pertinent challenges that confronted the free SHS implementation. Sebio, Senipana or Media will use generation. Now we think that the JBA also JBA sabi you as some pada kacha ni paunana sabio you as some ipada kacha ni panana na say amanya kaide debi a baby or ha ni pana bacha na adwen na onu na bato ni sunsondo na MPP for Ghana for akacha wonana. Say, every day.
Education will be another cornerstone of our reset, with a focus on improving infrastructure and providing resources for teachers and expanding access to technology for students. As indicated in our 120-day plan, we will convene a National Education Review Conference to dialogue on the challenges facing various levels of our educational system, in order that we can forge a consensus on the way forward to achieve quality education.
Ate, President John Dramani Mahama, and the man also put it to address a hour of women share. Or say, in Ezi kana na ma wetu de zibana amana kra no warehouse obi de warehouse nenen John Dramani Mahama ashede won ko dem warehouse na zibani guru won yi dem zibani bi na won fonko schools na yin no foma won yi zibani nzi en yi na ya kada oye amembu papa eyi na ya kada gitumi de ohowo ho aye krade de boso wo ho na no se ohowa oyi impempe isowa no nenen wadzi impempe isowa situation measures upon the way go what way onno na no kwari ya beka de ana mona John Mahama tu ni na oya na mompa ye bin se na ye de man ye de na amado ni ye de na ase de wa ja tu de ohowo ho o se le wo so wa no ni de minti se na na do crazy ba ni be go a de bia akom butuma ba wo chire ziba no mu amoche butuma ba wo se won ko yi de ni ziba ni be no won fo koma nyene mo fama won school ni ne mo fama won butu ni school ni won fan hwa na nyono ko ti no nyoma ni na obubungwa wa jajinche obua ba che na agin e ban ko na ye foda ye betum ohowo wo wo mashini wo Ghana na betum ya so wa na da hihye ni ye betum ye bedu akoma ya ye Omampeni Mahama se inya na mwana NDC abana ozi woni nana obutu da panika kra oda omani ni nana iyi ni yakada omani chichi onyi bakofo mitrem osi yansa onyi bakofo mitrem omani chichi nyi pakwe ni wode ni chichi omani wodi nipa ni wode ni chichi omani in the meantime na mwana John Dramani Mahama yutu nana we will get oya na mwana papa na yada na ase na yada mpaibo bezi mechi na yatu chasua Ghana fu da obi biara infona yintre nko benisha opinion contributes na onu na oba mama na ayeye kaibe gimizi ya kanyese oya no kwar yin chimezi yinzi no kwar amanya na ho yinzi no kwar amma omani Ghana ni puntu na chichire obakeichir kaibe emi ni owo ya wasaja osede yezi ede omani Ghana amma bibia yapade omani kudu puntu ayekeka omani yetu janesa aka. Remember, the show you are watching is the Bitter Trick show. Remember, as citizens, we ought to be truthful to one another, to ourselves, to our nation, so that collectively, both you and I have a responsibility. We have a role to play, so that the development that is desired for Ghana, we can all achieve it. Don't renege on your responsibility. Contribute. Former President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo said, "Let us be citizens and not spectators." But the sad aspect of it, he could not live up to that very, very beautiful, essential, relevant call that he made to Ghanaians. But today, we are seeing the party in opposition. Remember, the show is The Bitter Truth. Subscribe to Ghana News on YouTube. Like Ghana News page on Facebook. Drop your comment. Let us know. Let us hear from you concerning the views that we've espoused. Today, we looked at the steps that Mahama, the immediate steps that Mahama took, the directive that he took in order to minimize the food shortage impact on our students. What is your view? What is your opinion about it? Directing that food that they store in the warehouse should, part of it should be sent to the schools so that our kids can eat and study. What is your view about this? Let's hear from you. Stay blessed, stay out of trouble. May God watch over you and protect you. So we come your way with another unadulterated, bitter truth on our issues. Thank you for watching. Thank you for wasting your credit to watch this show. We want to hear from you. We say, stay blessed till we come your way again. We say, goodbye.